Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Hands on SAP Dev with me, DJ Q Macro. We're back with the third episode in this little mini series, Back to Basics on OData. Good morning to everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to Tim. Nice to see you yesterday, Manchester, Tim. I bumped into Tim Price in Manchester yesterday. I was going to give blood. They rejected me. I had 2 points less on my iron levels, so I couldn't give blood. Anyway, there we go. Helmut, good morning to Braunschweig, to Brunswick in Germany. Good morning, Nico. Good morning, Andrew. Good evening, Andrew. Good morning from near Brunswick. Okay, we've got 2 Brunswicks. Excellent, excellent. And Nikhil, happy time zone. And what was it that Lars always says? Yeah, happy time zone. And Visas, good morning to you. Ashish, good morning to India. Fantastic. Thanks for joining. Thanks for. In fact, I've switched to the wrong thing, haven't I? I've got my Stream Deck. I've got a new setup. Let me talk a little bit about the new setup very briefly, just in case something goes wrong, which it may well do. So I'm in a new location, and I'm using a different broadband approach. Just let me know if the connection's okay. Flatline, good morning, happy morning, Flatline. Hoping to get some more of your good comments today, by the way. And Dusseldorf, AP, good morning to Dusseldorf, fantastic. So yeah, we're gonna carry on with where we left off. I've got an excellent. I'm just looking down here at the YouTube studio, and it gives me like information about the connection. It's been excellent connection. And it was like good connection. What's going on? But it seems to be okay. So just let me know in the chat if things go awry. Good morning to Rahul. I finally got a chance to attend the live stream. Welcome, Rahul. A special welcome to you, Rahul, for your first live stream. Got my coffee. I've got different things today. No biscuit. I've got this sort of a cinnamon thing, quite nice. So yeah, let me switch back now to main. Yeah, let me share with you. There was one podcast episode I listened to this week, and well, a number of them. One of which was this UI5 newscast on data binding in UI5. So a couple of years ago, well, more than a couple of years ago now, 4 years ago, there was an episode on this UI5 newscast, but it was in German. So you know, some folks listened to it, other folks didn't. We've been playing around with our little CAP-based OData service and consuming that in this little series with a very, very simple UI5 app, and we've been talking about data bindings. So I would definitely recommend. Let me just click on that and share that thing there. So those who want to listen in German can listen in German. The English version is basically a slightly updated repeat version of the German version. Really good, definitely recommended. So have a listen to the UI5 newscast 25. Really, really cool. All about the different data bindings which we have been using, right? So talking of data bindings, Andrew, I know Andrew, I've just seen Andrew is on the stream just now. And Andrew had a question last week, and in fact, what I'm trying to do is capture these questions so that we can see how many we can cover in the subsequent episodes. And I've got here, let me just go to the OData Basics repo. So this is our repo that we've got for this little mini series. And this is where the code is for the CAP service and also the simple application. We'll look at that shortly. For those of you who've just joined for the first time, of course, you can always go and watch the previous episodes on replay on the playlist that this is on. What I did was I went back when I was going through the live stream replay and doing the chapter titles. I tried to capture some of the thoughts and ideas and questions. And I'll put them here, just as simple, literally simple sort of issues, you know, the title and a bit of a description and so on. Good morning, Marcus. Good morning, Marcus. And one of those questions in last week's live stream was from Andrew, and it was in Back to Basics OData Part 2, at specifically that point. That's like a link to the specific point in time in the video. Andrew said, is it possible to hard code a filter in the path? And what I've done is I've come up with a nice example. Hopefully it's a nice example. Good morning to Freiburg. Good morning, Jens and Ivanov. Good morning. Thank you very much. Nice, thank you. I like it. It's a little bit wild, but you know, why not? So I've got some information here, but I'll talk you through that. We'll start off with that. Because that will hopefully lead us into looking at where we left off last week, which was looking at the OData calls that the UI5 data binding mechanism was making for us, and then that showed us some system query options, which we're going to be talking about and investigating. So let's do that together. Again, just like I said before, I say always, no question too simple. So please ask away, chat away. Everybody's welcome, especially beginners. Okay, that could be my new catchphrase, couldn't it? So let me bring in the application. I've also got a different screen set up here as well. I've actually got my big LG 27-inch 4K monitor now, but I've divided it up into 4 1080p squares so that I'm only broadcasting one square, and I've got the studio here with the chat and different things. So yeah, if I go wrong, it's all my fault. So let's start up CDS run. Start that up and also remind ourselves of where we left off. And this is where we've got the binding to the products entity set, okay, in our list control, and it's the items aggregation. And we're using a standard list item to stamp out each of the individual products, binding the product name property and the quantity per unit property to a couple of properties of the control. Now let's bring in what it looks like, localhost 4004. Just remind ourselves, there's the products. Okay, so we've got a nice entity set. Remember, this is an entity set. And by default, if you click on this link, this generated link, this is where the $top equals 11 is coming from. So this is a cap specific thing. It's a cap nicety, as it were. Of course, normally we'll just say products, hit enter, and we get all the way down to the bottom there. We go right to the bottom, and we get, well, how many? Maybe this is where we should start. Actually, we get an array, a value array. As you can see there, look at the thing in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. Value brackets 76 dot units on order. So this is the 76th index 76 of the value array, and it's the units on order property. This is like a JSON thing rather than anything to do with OData per se. But that one there we can see is value bracket 0. So we know there are 77. But if we wanted to know how many there were, we could use a system query option. We just jump straight ahead, system query option. $count equals true, and what that will say is give me the product entity set, but also give me inline. There was this inline count parameter or option in previous versions of OData. This is OData v4. It's sort of consolidated into $count now rather than inline count, but it's the same sort of idea. If we hit $count equals true as a system query option in the query string part of the URL, we get the same result, but we also get this nice little annotation here, odata.count. Okay, so there, that's a tiny little toe in the water of a system query option. We've seen a system query options before. In fact, does anybody remember in OData v2, for example, and also OData v4, you can also append this special, it's not really a system query option because it doesn't belong in the query part of the URL. Good morning, Ian. Late and only stay till 8:30. Not a good start to the day. Well, Ian, however long you can stay, whatever time you arrive, you're welcome. So we can add as part of the resource path, not as part of the query this time, $count /$count. And what we get then is 77, but we get that as a raw basic value. Okay. In the same way, by the way, does anybody know? In the same way, I've gone completely off piste already. Products. Let's choose products brackets 1. Let's do the old-fashioned one. Products brackets 1. I don't know, product name. Okay. So we get chai. The name of the first product is chai, right? The name of this product. The name of the product with the ID of 1 is chai. However, if we wanted not JSON representation or XML representation, but if we wanted the actual just raw value, chai, just give me chai, right? And I've used this context when I've been connecting to OData services and bringing values into Google spreadsheets, for example. You just want the data. You can add also in the same sort of way as $count. You can say $value, and you just get the raw value. Okay, so all these things, as obviously clear that they're working, so all these things are supported by the Cloud Application Programming Model's implementation of OData, which is V4, which is fantastic. So good morning, Peter, as well. Okay, so where was I going with this? I can't remember. Let me know. Tell me where I was going with this. We got the, oh yes, we were just saying, what are the products? What do they look like? And therefore, what are we doing when we're binding the /products path with the items to the items aggregation of the list control in UI5? Well, we get this result. Let's just do that again. Let's go here. Where are we? Have we got there? Let's go back here. Let's go to the app itself, simple app. And in fact, let me bring up the, what's it called? The Chrome Developer Tools. There we go. We get that. Oh, Jens, I have a simple question related to an update operation in Segwit. Is it possible to return a BAPI return table in order to provide all error messages to the caller? Oh, hold on. I have a simple question related to an update operation in Segwit. Is it possible to return a BAPI return table in order to provide all error messages to the caller? It's a long time since I've used Segwit and since I've built OData services in the ABAP stack. So I'd only be guessing. I have an inkling that it is possible because I'm sure I used to collect error messages together and send them back in the response. But that was a long time ago. So when I'm going through this, Jens, I will add this to the list of issues and questions. I can go and find out from the folks who know more, or somebody else can, or whatever. Okay, so thanks for the question. I'm not sure I know the answer, but let me find out. Oh, Ashish says we can use message container and send as part of the response. So maybe my memory is not as flaky as I thought. I'm pretty sure you can do it. But I will add it to the list of issues, and then we can be clear. Okay, we'll just tick them all off. By the way, let me know in the chat how many weeks you would like this to go, because there's so much to cover in OData and the related topics. My gut feel is that we need at least a couple more episodes on OData, because we want to cover actions and functions and other bits and pieces as well. So if that's okay, let me know. If it's not okay, if you want to go further, deeper, longer, or shorter, let me know. By the way, next week there's holidays everywhere, so there won't be a live stream next week. So there we go. Okay, so this is where we left off. Okay, and we also, if we did this Northwind, we also saw that because in where is it? Yeah, so this is the thing. Just switching between these things is a little bit more complicated. But because we last week set the group ID to $direct instead of $auto, what we're getting is individual calls rather than batch calls to the OData service. So we can see this one here, and we can see the query strings, and we can see we've got $select, $skip, and $top. Those are 3 system query options, right? So we'll have a look at those shortly. But just to cover Andrew's question, Andrew's question was, let me just bring it back. Here we go. Let's go into app. Could you put a filter directly, for example, a filter directly? The filter is a system query option, $filter, in this binding. Let's say you just wanted to bind this list aggregation to specific things in the product's entity set. And the answer was yes, but we didn't cover it. So what I've done is I've added an answer or a pull request in a branch called filter in binding with all the details here. But let me just switch to that. If I switch to, let's finish that main, let's switch to filter in binding. And there we can see And there we can see the extended way you can specify binding information for an aggregation. So we've got the path still, products. This time we've got this as part of a what looks like an object, a JavaScript object, okay? And we've got a parameters property, which is an object itself. And you can specify various things in the parameters property. You know, here's all the stuff related to this binding information. And we can specify a property name of $filter. And then we can specify as the value of the $filter property what we would normally put on the OData query string. Okay, does that make sense? We've got lots of things here. Marcus Rest, you can send, how many weeks? All of them. How many weeks? All of them. Okay, all of the weeks. Okay, that's good. Marcus says you can send an HTTP 200 with error table, or you can stick to the standard and send 404, 403, etc. As many as you think. It's all good learning. Thanks, Ian. Marcus Rest, how can this be achieved in the coding of the redefined method? Just by raising an exception, right? But how I can add an internal table of... Okay, we should definitely continue this conversation. And let's add it. I'll add it to the issues as well. Andrew says, perhaps I want to see a list of the discontinued products without writing a new service. Ah, yes. Perfect, Andrew. Perfect. I'm glad you said that because I chose the discontinued exactly for that sort of reason. Exactly. So Rahul says, deeper the better. Half knowledge is more dangerous than a quarter. Yes, I like your style, Rahul. Half knowledge is more dangerous than a quarter. I might quote that. That's brilliant. Okay, perfect. So what I wanted to do then is, let's have an example here. Let's go to the, where is it? Let's go to here. Let's go to the products entity set. Let's get rid of that again. Oh, I killed it. Let me just run it again. CDS run. Let me go to the products entity set. And we've got this discontinued thing. If I wanted to filter on discontinued equals true, show me the discontinued ones, for example, right? So question mark, $filter, this is a system query option. We're sort of getting to know system query options sort of by stealth, really, without sort of staring at them directly, right? But you can't use variable binding in that filter, can you? For that, you have to create filter at the controller, then add the filter from exactly. So Flatline is very, very correct here. This is for where you want fairly simple and fairly static filters, like Andrew's example, if you wanted to just see a list of the discontinued products, right? You could put that in the binding information, but absolutely right, in UI5, and I don't, this is in danger of moving more towards UI5 and data binding than OData per se, but Flatline is absolutely right. You have a filter mechanism in UI5 that you can apply, and then you can do that more dynamically. Absolutely correct, Flatline. Okay, so $filter equals discontinued equals true. Okay, and we can see, obviously the first product's changed, right? But we can say also and $count equals true, so we can just see the count as well. This is why the $count system query option is really interesting and really useful. We go from 77 down to 8. Okay, so that's what we would do in a normal OData URL, in the query string part of the OData URL. So now if we go back here, we can understand what's going on here. $filter discontinued equals true. And the other change I've made is I've gone from a standard list item to an object list item, just so I can have an object marker, and I can have it flagged, so I can say this is discontinued or not. Okay, so if I were to say, let's get rid of that. Okay, if I were to do that, path products, let's save that, and then go back here. Where are we? There we go. Simple app. There we go. So now, okay, so now we're getting all the products, but where the product is discontinued, we get a little flag. Let's bring in the, let's always have the, oops, what's going on? Let's always have the Chrome Developer Tools so we can see what's going on. But we can now see we've got the discontinued products flagged, okay? So now let's go back to here and add that back in, okay? And then let's go back here, refresh, and all we get now are the discontinued products. Okay. So Ashish says, markFlagged property seems deprecated. So for custom, yes, so that's a very good point, Ashish. This is again a UI5 thing. markFlagged, and there's another mark something else as well. Those were specific properties on specific list item controls. But there is a deprecation of those specific things and a move away from those towards what we've got now, and what I've used, which is a markers aggregation. And this is a more generic object marker with a type. So you got type flag, type locked, type draft, type whatever. Okay, so I use that. So that's what this is here, actually. So a good point, actually. There are some deprecations in this area for things that start mark. markFlagged, mark this, mark that. Okay, so hopefully Andrew does that sort of that addresses gives an example of the question that you asked. So let me just go back to here. That's basically, this describes what I've just showed you. Okay, I'm not going to merge this into the main. We'll leave this as a pull request for now in this branch. You can see the changes. Files changed. What's going on? Why is that not working? Files changed. Come on, why is that not working? What's going on? Q macro. Oh, it's just GitHub. It's not working. Oh well. We can see the changes. There we go. Okay, so let's take a step back. Oh, there we go. There's the changes. Bit bigger, bit bigger, bit bigger. That's what we changed. So let's take a step back and start to think about URL conventions in general. So let me go here. By the way, also, yes, before I forget, also we have this discussion thread in the Coffee Corner forum. In fact, let me just not share that one yet. We've got the SAP Coffee Corner, which is on our community groups discussion facility. And in here we've got, and I'll link to this also in the description of this video, we've got a back to basics OData thread. Okay, so I want to share that thread down here. So maybe if you want to continue any discussions we have here, you can have those discussions in this thread. It's like a long-lived thing. Okay, and I can see, I don't know whether what's his name? Who was it? Brendan is on this morning. If you are Brendan, hello and welcome. So Brendan's been talking about generating Swagger UI for OData, and CAP can do that, and there's an example of that. So so there we go. So have a discussion there if you need to as well. So this is an incredibly interesting document, and it's something that you might want to browse. I'm only showing this here because this is basically part 2 of the OData specification, which talks about URL conventions. Okay, and just to, in fact, let's just contextualize this for a second, because these again can be a little bit scary. GitHub.com Q macro. We looked at this last week, didn't we? Or the week before. OData specs. There we go. There it is. There. This document. Let's get rid of that. This document is 2nd of June 2016. Yeah, GitHub seems to have some problem. Okay, we'll go back to GitHub shortly. But basically, this describes the conventions. We can get it all on one page, more or less. Yeah, leave the appendices. We can get it all on one page. This describes all the different parts of an OData URL effectively. It describes the service root URL, which is the service document. It also talks about how to address entity sets and entities, what the canonical URL of entities are. It's incredibly detailed. But the most exciting part for today, for us, is section 5, which are the query options. Now, I always wondered why the name for these things is such a mouthful, system query option. And the reason is sort of here staring us in the face, because in the query string part of a URL, the thing after the question mark in a URL, OData actually defines multiple different styles of options. The main one being, the most well-known being, the ones beginning $filter, expand, select, order by, and so on, the ones we're going to look at. But there are also custom query options. You might want to send some service-specific options, name value pairs, to the OData service that are not the standard $filter, $expand, $select, and so on. So those are called custom query options, but the standard ones defined by OData are system query options, and that's, I guess, why they're called system query options, right? There are also parameter aliases, which we're not going to get into because I've never really used them. Yeah, they're quite interesting, but we're not going to go there right now. Oh, lots of talk. So Peter says, DJ, what are your thoughts on using PascalCase versus camelCase for OData properties? I see that CAP's documentation uses camelCase except abbreviations such as ID. Yes, I've never really been that excited about PascalCase. I prefer camelCase purely because just on the eyes it looks a little bit smoother as well. So I'm a fan of the camelCase for OData properties. So yeah, and it sort of also a little bit sort of fits together with the type prefixing of variable names in JavaScript as well. That's used by convention in the UI5 world. For example, you know, we're talking about the word OData here, which is confused a lot by an object called data. But of course, the O prefix specifying object is OData. So we've got here OData. That's an object, which is like a data object rather than OData here. But what I'm saying is, you know, camelCase, those two look similar. So it's less jarring on my eyes when I see camelCase variables next to variables, camelCase property names next to variables that also start small and get big. Does that make sense? Flatline says, background question for everybody. Do you use OData prototype tool, just a VS Code extension kind of tool or standard? Oh, that's a good question, Flatline. Yes, I'd love to see what people's responses are for that. So Andrew says, custom query options, would that be for specific implementation? Yes, exactly. Andrew, that would be for specific implementations to define. In fact, let's have a look at what it says here. It's only a short section here. Custom query options, let me be bigger. Let's go back again. Custom query options provide an extensible mechanism for service-specific information to be placed in a URL query string. There we go. And really nice example. I think that this example might come, you know, from sort of an SAP flavor of something or other. Debug mode equals true, you know. A custom query option is any query option of the form shown by the rule custom query option in the Bacchus-Nauer form, the OData, the hardcore specification of OData. Okay, so absolutely right, Andrew. Okay, so custom query options, but what we're looking at are system query options. So we've got filter, expand, select, order by, top, skip, count, search, and format. Now, why don't we start by having a look what we got here, right? And we'll keep Andrew's version of the thing here. Is it still running? Yes, it's still running. Okay, so we saw last week the OData model first fetches the metadata to find out about the data itself. Then it does a head request for cross-origin resource sharing. No, it was the request forgery, wasn't it? Request forgery token, fetching a token. And then we get this thing here. So we get a $filter, a $select, a $skip, and a $top. In fact, that $filter is new with this version because we've added the $filter to the binding information in the list control. Okay. So what's going on here? Let's just have a look. In fact, we can double click here, double click from Chrome Developer Tools, and it will open that URL in a new tab, which is really nice. Okay, so let's stare a little bit at this, and again, let me know if this is big enough to see. What we got here is we've got the service route Northwind model. There's the service route. In fact, let's open up that. Okay, we've seen the service route. With the service route, we can get to the metadata by adding on $metadata. That's another special dollar property thing, right? $metadata, right? That's that. Those are the two well-known documents. And then we've got the resource path after the slash, which is products. Okay, so we've got this thing here, products. But then we've got the question mark, So Andrew is saying, I'm not surprised some of those products are discontinued. 1 kilogram tins of Alice mutton. Yeah, I know, maybe this Northwind was like from the 18th century or the 19th century. Exactly, Andrew, I did wonder that too. Well spotted, sir. But then we get a URL encoded version of stuff. So let's put that, let's tell you what we'll do is we'll take the query string, URL decode, because this will also make it a little bit bigger as well. There we go. Let's paste that in there and decode. There we go. So we get $filter equals discontinued equals true. So there is our first system query option. That's the one we put in. And then, of course, in a query string, you can have multiple query options, and they're separated by or joined together by ampersands, as we know. Then we get $select equals discontinued product ID, product name, quantity per unit. Okay, we'll have a look at that in a minute. Then we get another ampersand. Then we got $skip equals 0. Then we get an ampersand. Then $top equals 20. So when you stare at it for a little bit, it becomes less scary and less like line noise and more like something that's meaningful. So let's have a look first of all at the $skip and the $top. We've got here, let's just get rid of all of that. $top equals 20. That basically says, give me 20. Okay, starting from the start, give me 20. Let's reduce that. Top equals 2. Okay, fairly straightforward and fairly boring. What you want to say? We saw the use of top in conjunction with its sort of sibling skip in the first episode, or was it the previous episode of this series? In fact, let's do it. Here we go. There, skip 0, top 20. Now, if we go back, in fact, let me go back here and stop that filtering binding, go back to the main. So we haven't got this discontinued equals true filter for a second, and CDS run again. Let's bring that back and refresh. We've got here this growing equals true. That will, by default, sort of reduce the stress on the data transfer and on the backend service by asking only for X items at a time. And X by default, as we saw, is 20. So that's why over here we get skip equals 0, top equals 20. Okay. And then if we scroll down here, oops, we get skip 20, top 20, scroll down again, skip 40, top 20. So we're going through the products chunk by chunk. Skip the first 0, then skip the first 20, then skip the first 40, and each time we're getting 20. Okay, so it's going through saying, give me that, give me that, give me that, give me that. Okay, is top equals 2 constant? Do I get always the same 2? That's a really good question, Marcus. So yes, you get the same 2 as long as the implementation is consistent. Yeah, I mean, if for some reason the implementation was slightly less stable, if it retrieved data from the database and that was always, well, that was not always in the same order, and it didn't do any sort of pre-sorting before marshalling the results to return, then you might get different things. But I think most, if not all, OData implementations take care to say, well, let's make this consistent. Okay, so here with CAP, with ABAP implementations of OData and all the OData service libraries that I'm aware of, that does that force you to? I mean, I suppose you could. I suppose you could build it so that it returned random ones, but why would you do that? Okay, so yeah, I think we can rely on it as being constant. Okay, I've just seen what you said there. Even if the DB in the background is reorganized, yes, exactly. So this is the combination of skip and top allows us to page through the data. In fact, if we go to the bottom, we know there are 77 products. If we go to the bottom, 60, top equals 20. But also, the OData model mechanism in UI5 knows that it's reached the end, right? In fact, because it knows it's only got 17, 60, 20, 20, 40, 60, and then 17 for the end. So it's not going to ask for any more. By the way, there's also, this is called client-side paging, using the $skip and the $top. What time is it, by the way? Yeah, using the $skip and the $top. There's also, does anybody know about server-side paging with OData? There's another, well, it's not a system query option because it's not anything that we would come up with ourselves to generate. Let me give an example. If we go to V4, into the V4 Northwind service, there's a, it's a bit small, there's a, what's it called? It is, oh, customers and, there we go. There's an entity set called customer and suppliers by cities. Okay, if we go for that entity set here, we get all the customers and all the suppliers with the cities that they're in. Okay, and then the relationship is whether it's a customer or a supplier. Okay, quite a simple, innocent enough entity set. So Flatline is saying, so no OData prototyping tool is around. I'm not aware of any, and I don't use an OData prototyping tool when I'm building my OData services. The prototyping tool for me is literally just the CDS, the Core Data Services language that I use, as in it's this. Where is it? DB serve. There. Well, in fact, it's that plus, of course. There it is. There, the schema. So that's for me prototyping enough. Or were you thinking of something else? I'm not. Maybe I'm not understanding your question, Flatline. So let me know. Yeah, exactly. Ashish is absolutely right. Skiptoken is used for server-side paging, and hopefully, this gives us an example. So, in fact, if we say, give me the $count part of the resource, there's 120. Okay. If we go back, let's go to the bottom of this list. And we can see here that we get, in fact, if we go to the top of the list again, collapse that, this JSON display, this JSON formatter will nicely tell us how many entries there are in this array. There are 100. So we've only got 100 of the 120. But the server also returns, as a bit of annotation here, NextLink. To get the next lump of entities, you have to request this. Okay, so let's do this. If we copy that there and replace that there, we get how many? 20. Notice also there's no odata.nextLink because there are no more entities to retrieve. Okay. Oh, you just answered it, DJ. Thanks. That was on my mind using cat for that. Okay, perfect. Cool. So yeah, Ashish, exactly. Skiptoken is used for server-side paging. And this is one of the things that I really like about OData, in that in terms of being a protocol that exhibits RESTful properties, it's right up there, right? Because this is what HATEOAS, the hypertext as the engine of application state, really is all about. We got a response and we could follow metadata and information in that response to related information. Okay, so there we go. Anyway, okay, you were just wondering if there's a UI tool for that. Not that I'm aware of, Flatline. If anybody else is aware of a UI tool, let us know in the chat. Hello, E. Hello, E. Welcome. Nice short name. Okay, so there's an example of something that is it's the same shape and format and color, as it were, of as a system query option, but it's not listed in the specification here. It's not listed as skiptoken. In fact, I don't do this. I'm curious. Docs.oasis. We are at sites : bang. $skip token. Part 1 protocol. There we go. Part 1 protocol $skip token. Ooh. Skip token. Let's go to the first. Oh, skip token. What? I'm sure I saw one earlier. Skip token. Ah, okay. Okay, so it is a system query option, but it's a reserved system query option. So it's not listed, okay, in the sort of the client side, as it were, what the client would use for system query options. I guess that makes sense. Pavan says, hi DJ, good morning. I think we didn't talk about Oh! Well remembered, Pavan. Well remembered. We didn't. What I was asking earlier in the first episode was, if we go to V4, right? Let's go to the. Where is it? Have we got an example here? Yeah. Okay. So here's an example of a V4 service. The data is supplied as an object. Okay. If we were to go to V2. Northwind, there we go, products. But ask for it with the system query option format equals JSON. There's another system query option, $format equals JSON. Okay. What you would normally have is an array of results, right, in JSON. There's no other reason, there's no annotations like we've seen in V4, in V2, right? So logically, why not just return an array in JSON, as in start it with the open square brackets and everything? The reason being, and Pavan, thanks for reminding me, the reason is that there was an exploit that allowed, if I remember rightly, that allowed the array prototype in JavaScript to be overridden, which meant that you could fetch, or in fetching, a resource that returned JSON, and that JSON representation started with an open square bracket, as in was an array, the outermost element type was an array. Then that was an exploit that was open for exploiting. There was a hole open for exploiting. So to get around that and to avoid having an outermost array element, they said, well, let's just put it in an object, and therefore let's supply the array value as the array as a value to a property in that object. What object name should we choose? Oh, D for data. Okay, that's where that came from. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Maybe a little bit out of context now, but thank you for reminding us, Pavan. Yes, I completely forgot about that. Ronnie, good morning, Ronnie. Good morning. Hey, DJ, a bit late to the show, but I'm pleased to see what's going on here. Thank you, Ronnie, and we're pleased to see you here as well. Perfect, perfect. Okay, so where were we? We looked at skip token. Failed to load data. I think there's definitely something going on with GitHub. Anyway, there we go. It's back again. We don't need to look at that anyway now. So we've got top equals 2. Let's go back to, we don't need that. Let's go back to OData specific URL convention. There we go, URL conventions. Let's go back to here. Let's go down, 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 up, up, up. Where is it? Oh no, it wasn't this one. It's this one, wasn't it? 2nd of June. There we go. Dollar filter, expand, select, order by. So we've done top and skip, done count, search, format. We've done format. Why don't we have a look at select and expand? Maybe we'll do filter is massive. Okay, there are so many functions and things you can do with filter. We've done filter discontinued equals true, a very simple filter. History and origins are never out of context. Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you, Ronnie. So we'll look at expand and we'll look at select. Okay, so if we have here products. Oh, here we go. Yeah, we got, yeah, that's where we were. I forgot where we were. So we got the product center set. We looked at skip and top. So let's get rid of skip and top. What's going on here? Instead of having each of the entities with all of the properties that are available in that entity type definition, to save traffic, to save network traffic, just give me what I want, not just give me everything. And again, this is one of the things that the GraphQL fanatics is like, oh yeah, REST, and it's all, you get so much data and you have to make multiple calls. Nonsense, absolute nonsense. So here's an example of, let's put it back in again, $select equals product ID, product name, and quantity per unit. All I want are the values for these three properties: product ID, product name, and quantity per unit. So there we're reducing by more than half the amount of data that comes back. But there's more. Let's say, for example, let's go for categories. Let's go for categories. So categories is quite small, but categories on its own is not that exciting. If we look at the metadata, there we can see categories, entity type has category ID, category name, and description as three sort of basic scalar, let's call it, properties. But there's also navigation properties, a one-to-many relationship between category and the products in that category. And note that the relationship is described as a one-to-many, sort of implicitly by this type. It's a collection of products, okay? So we can say, give me in fact, let's just keep away from the system query option $expand for a second and say, let's say we wanted to have a look at the second category, condiments. So /2, there we go. There is the second category, condiments. We can also expand the resource path to say, well, yeah, that's all well and good, but what I actually want are the products in category 2, in the condiments category. So we can, again, add to the resource path. I'm deliberately sort of making a distinction between resource path and the query options, the system query options, in for a second. Oh, sorry, Flatline says, just by looking at $metadata, can you understand a service's V2? Yes, you can. $metadata, it's at the top. There we go, version 4, for example. Version 2, it's not like version equals 2.0, somewhere, V2, metadata, it says version 1, but somewhere there's a way of seeing that it's version 2, not version 4. But I'm not going to get into that right now. But yeah, so you can tell version 4. There we go. Hopefully that answers his question. So what was that? Oh yeah, so categories. We can say, let me go. We don't want that one. Let me go and say, give me the products. Look at that. Look at that. Give me the products for category 2. And just to see we've just not got a list of all the products, let's add a system query option, count equals true. We get 12. And in fact, we can see, why don't we also say, let's just double check that these are just the products for category 2. We can say $select equals category ID, and this is one of those generated properties that has been generated for us in the persistence layer, because I'm using managed associations, which is a wonderful thing within CAP, right? We can see that we have category ID 2. Notice we also get, we haven't selected the product ID, but we always get, CAP always returns us the key property as well, okay? So there is an example of getting the products for a certain specific category. So going from an entity to an entity set, going from a single entity to a collection of entities. However, what happens if we wanted to see the products for all categories? In that case, we can use the system query option expand, and expand is all about following navigation properties. Expand relates to navigate. In fact, let's expand, $expand. The expand system query option specifies the related resources to be included in line with retrieve resources, okay? And it says here, each expand item, that's just in this sort of description here, is evaluated relative to the entity containing the navigation property being expanded. So when we look at the metadata, navigation property, products, we can say $expand equals products. And now what do we get? Can you expand on that? Nice one, Andrew. I see what you did there. Excellent. So Andrew says, Helmut says, in fact, flatline at the top of the metadata there is a version number. Oh yes, don't remember its name. Perfect. Thank you, Helmut, for answering that. That's good. Andrew says, Ronnie, Helmut, nice to see you both here. I hope all is well in your part of the world. What a lovely community we have here. Fantastic. Andrew says, can you expand on that? I can always expand on things. Oh gosh, 850. Perfect. Helmut says, Andrew, but besides the war, yeah, oh yeah, okay, yeah. Yep. Okay. So let's collapse this. Products. In fact, let's collapse it all. There we go. So we have 8. What's that 8 represent? That represents the 8 categories. Let's do that for a second. There. Okay, so we got the first category, and it has 12 products there. The second category, and it has 12 products. Interesting. The third category, and it has 13 products. Let's go for the 8th category. It's got how many? 12. Okay, nicely evenly divided. Maybe that's what, I don't know. That was quite a surprise. So there's expand. Now, let's expand it all. Let's do that again. Let's say we wanted, and this is where we want to dig in a little bit to the $filter, which is the most exciting system query option. Let's say that we want to, let's start simple. Let's look at the categories again. And let's start with products, and we could say $filter equals, let's see the products that are not in stock. Units in stock equals 0. Will that work? There we go. And we get, in fact, why don't we always add ampersand $count. In fact, let's add it at the start so we don't have to keep changing it. $count equals true and $filter equals that. So we get 5. So we got 5 products where the units in stock is 0. Okay. What happens if we wanted to say, give me the categories and expand the products for those categories, but I only want to see the products for those categories that are in stock? Okay. How do you combine the system query options when you're doing some sort of nested operation? Well, that's possible as well. Let's do that. Let's go back to categories, right? Expand equals products. So we get all the products, and we got units in stock 39, units in stock, units in stock 0. There we go. So Chef Anton's gumbo mix is not in stock, product 5, and that is in category 2. Okay. So why don't we say, I want to see only the products, the products with units in stock. If we were to say and $filter equals units in stock greater than 0, what's going to happen? We get an error. Property units in stock does not exist in type Northwind model categories. Okay, so effectively, and I think effectively what we're saying here is we want to filter on a property in the categories entity type, but the property units in stock doesn't exist in the categories entity type. There used to be, actually I've just suddenly thought, can you do this? Products / units in stock? No. There was some way of doing it in V2 in a different way, but anyway, I can't remember. I'm V4 all the way now. Filter equals, but what you can do is instead of having the filter parameter system query option at the same level, you can nest it and have it specific to the product's navigation property expansion. So now, let me just write that out again because that's been URL encoded. Units in stock greater than 0. Now it works, and also gumbo is not there. Gumbo is not there because the filter has worked on the products. Andrew says, Ronnie says, it's a bit sad that OData hasn't a wider reach than it does. It's quite nice to work with and you can wrap your head around it. It is, Ronnie, and I think it has a lot more features than people give it credit for. It's a beautiful protocol. Ronnie, oh no, Andrew says, who hasn't worked with an API that is like the Wild West with no clear logic? It's nice with a bit of standardization and structure. Now, Ronnie, that's a fantastic point. One of the key things, one of the weak points of RESTful APIs is that it can be anything. Well, not anything, but there's no standardization. You know, you don't know what the resource representation is going to be. You know, it could be JSON, it could be XML, it could be, you know, a GIF, it could be CSV, right? Which is all part of the beauty of what REST is all about, resources and representations of those resources. But you don't know how to interact with it in the same way that HTTP is beautiful because you have this uniform interface. OData at the protocol, at the application protocol level, has a uniform interface, the standard set of system query options, a standard way to define resource paths, a standard well-defined service document location, a standard well-defined metadata document location. OData is a fantastically powerful and useful and unifying protocol, which people are choosing to, throughout the window, ignore when they're jumping ship to GraphQL. Yeah, what can I say? John Murray says, I blame the lack of adoption of OData on the documentation. You look at the doc pages and they look enterprisey, and that turns off a lot of developers. They should reskin the docs. That's a really good point, John. That's a really good point. That's interesting. John, are you talking about the documentation on the Oasis site, this documentation? Because this documentation is super important and super useful, and it has to be exact because it's the specification of the protocol. Or are you talking about the other documentation? I'd love to know. John Murray, you have something there. The docs look rather plain. No eye candy or hype. Nicely said, Andrew. Sorry, what did adding the parentheses mean again? Is it applied directly to the end? Yes. So Patrick, thank you for asking. I'm sorry I rushed through that. Let me do that again. Let me start from scratch. Not scratch, but $expand equals products. Okay, we can expand the products, but we want to filter the product. Let's do another filter. But we want to filter and apply the filter to the entity set that is pointed to by the navigation property, as in pointed to by the expansion of the products. So we open the brackets there, so it's like attached to the products. It qualifies that product's expansion. And $filter equals, well, let's do something different. Discontinued equals true. Okay, so we're now applying the filter system query option, discontinued equals true, to the products collection that we're expanding upon from the categories. Enter. There we go. You can see that's discontinued. These are all discontinued. In fact, for example, you know, what was it there? Look, category ID, confections and dairy products don't have any discontinued products. Okay, cool. So does that explain it better, Patrick? I'm sorry, I must have rushed through that. So Rahul says, will contains work with $filter like $filter? Yes, it does. In fact, I think, tell you what time is it? 8:58. Yes, it does. Let's do products. Let's do products. Products there, right? If we do filter equals contains product name, comma, ch. There we go. Chai, Chang, Chef's Anton Gumbo mix. Okay, so and Chago there. Chocolate, biscuits. Tea. Ooh, let's do tea. Okay, tea time chocolate biscuits. So yes, there's a ton of functions that you can use. This is why we want to do filter next week. Let's deep dive into filter. There's a million things in filter. If we have a look here, go here, filter. Equals, not equals, greater than, less than, all logical operators, arithmetic expressions, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, canonical functions, contains, ends with index of, length, substring, to lower, to upper, trim, day, fractions, seconds. It's worth, I think, a whole episode, or almost a whole episode. So let's do that next week. That's okay. It's 5 seconds left. Shall we leave it there? Let's end on the hour. Thank you all so much for joining. Let me know in the chat right now whether this has been useful at this sort of level. And thanks for the feedback about going further and deeper with more episodes. We'll do that. Ronnie says word. I hope that's not the word I'm thinking of. But yes, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for all the questions, and have a great weekend. I forgot to eat my non-Stormtrooper waffle. There we go. So I'll see you not next week, but the week after. Bye for now.